Welcome back to Frugal Friday. My name is Jesse, this is my wife Kim, and we were on the channel Is Fire for Me. We are reading through the book The Art of Frugal Hedonism. And Kim, can you tell us what chapter we're on this week?
I sure can. We are on chapter 13. And chapter 13 of The Art of Frugal Hedonism by Annie Razor Rowland with Adam Grubb is titled Listen to the Habit Scientists. Yes, they have those now. We humans are creatures of habit, and a very adaptive trait it is too. Mental processes burn up a heck of a lot of historically precious kilojoules, so evolution has designed us to favor even flawed, automatic behaviors over repeatedly using time and energy to think about what would be good to do in every individual situation. Giving these entrenched behaviors a makeover isn't always easy. As if the sound of your evolutionary brain yelling at you for wasting kilojoules whenever you tried to change a teeny tiny habit wasn't off-putting enough, consider this. Although self-discipline is now talked about as though it were a fundamental personality component, it hasn't been much of a player until the last few centuries of our evolution. When your basic daily activities are absolutely necessary to provide you with food and shelter for the immediate future, there's unlikely to be any faffing along the lines of, oh golly, can I really be bothered going foraging today? Also, no need to manifest the discipline to constantly not eat chocolate cake or to not play World of Warcraft for 19 hours straight. We are surrounded by a kaleidoscope wealth of tantalizing hyperstimulation and easy calories, but we haven't had a long time to get very good at this discipline thing. The happy news is that research has indicated that willpower functions like a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. As with other muscles, your progression to bodybuilder-esqueness will go better if you start off with stuff you can handle and build up gradually, and willpower trumps big biceps in terms of life knock-on effects. Studies have shown that people who consciously flex some willpower in one area, sticking to an exercise plan, for example, tend to automatically use it in other aspects of their lives, not overspending, perhaps. However, habit scientists suggest that relying solely on willpower to change ingrained habits is fallible. If you're run down or unwell, your willpower muscle loses oomph, just as your physical ones do. The trick, apparently, is to not even attempt using sheer force of will to resist behaviors that you want to change. Instead, notice the urge and then put a different behavior there in response to it. Perhaps when you have a crummy day at your job, your urge for pleasure and escapism leads to spending big on beer and pizza and watching inane TV all evening. If you'd like to change this habit, try acknowledging the urge and what cued it, but then invent a response that satisfies that urge in a way that you feel better about. Perhaps eating soup and buttery toast while rereading a favorite book in bed all evening, or putting punk rock on your headphones and going for a frenzied walk to a hill you like to watch the sunset from. Invent these substitutions in times when you're feeling potent and inspired, and once you've experienced a pleasure rush from them enough times, they become new habits, and you'll go to them gladly even when you're feeling wilted of will. Another fantastic strategy for taking some of the load of habit change off your willpower muscle is to make a few blanket decisions, thereby neatly sidestepping hundreds of small willpower sapping ones. See number 39, Limit the Burden of Choice, for more on this. I think I'll read their little story here.
Okay.
It's titled Seize the Day. Habits are dogged things where the rush of motivation that comes with epiphany is fleeting, no matter how vivid it may feel at the time. So if you are ever feeling inspired to revamp some aspect of your life, perhaps, dare we be so presumptuous, by something within these very pages, you likely have but a wee window of opportunity to convert inspiration into action. You might begin by jotting down a few specific, realistic changes you'd like to turn into habits, or bits of your life that you think could be rejigged. Starting with realizable goals means you can witness the success and effects of your choices pretty quickly, leading to positive reinforcement and a heady sense of mastery over your own behavior. These pleasant feelings can kickstart a shift in directions that has its own momentum. Or you could dive straight in. Insert instant frugal hedonism by deciding not to go to that cafe for breakfast this morning. Go for a decadently long stroll instead and pick up enough good eggs and cream to make deluxe omelets for a whole week of breakfasts. You've already saved $20, gotten some exercise, and had a dandy morning. If you're feeling bolder, set the ball rolling on something grander. Something that sabotages the chance of relapse. Give yourself 1 week to calculate whether you can manage without your car, for example. If you decide by the end of that time that you can tweak all the vital elements enough to make it work, sell the thing. It's a bold move.
Yeah.
Big or small changes,
1
run
week.
with big could just be like a week off of work.
Right.
I feel like maybe
Yep,
it should.
don't need the car.
Big or small changes, run with your personal style here. The important thing is to do them soon, while you're still riding that fizzy crest of the wave of insight.
Wow, that's an interesting chapter there. I think that's something that obviously can be used in many aspects of life, but since this is a financial channel, I think first of back when we were working on getting out of debt and how much actual thought and motivation and effort went into that, and how easy it could be just to want to give up and feel like you were deserved to be able to go out and spend some money and stuff like that. So I think this could be very helpful for someone trying to, focus specifically on one task, whether that be get out of debt or achieve financial independence or financial independence, retiring early, whatever your goal is. Realizing that you're going to come up to some points where the effort that it takes to get that goal is going to feel, way too cumbersome to want to achieve, and you're going to want to give up. So to be able to realize that you're going through that and what you're going to do when you hit that point, so that you don't have to figure it out when you're in that point is a good point there. So
Yeah.
what do you think? What'd you get out of that?
Well, I've done a lot of work around habits, and I've read a lot of things about habits, and there's a lot of really good content out there about changing habits. There's one specific book that I can't think of the title, but we can put it down in the show notes. But it is specifically about habits and how habits are formed and how habits can be changed. And basically, there's usually a cue or a trigger, and then there's an action, and then there's a result. And so, say, for example, a habit that you don't consciously think about that's contributing to you not maybe being where you want to be financially, like maybe stopping for a daily coffee. So say you're someone who enjoys a beverage and it's really convenient and easy in your lifestyle to just swing by your favorite coffee shop and get the coffee, right? But that's setting you back somewhere between $5 and $10 a day, depending on what kind of coffee you drink and where you go. So what you can do is you can look at that habit. So what is the cue or the trigger that makes you stop for the coffee? Is it leaving the house without a beverage? Is it something else? Like, are you getting, like, you drive and you think, oh, I need caffeine, maybe it's a little early, etc. So there's some sort of cue or trigger. What you want to do is that cue and trigger will always be there. The habit that you want to change is stopping for the beverage. But what is the outcome that you get? So just look at this process to see, okay, what's my cue and trigger? I'm stopping for a coffee, and then what am I getting? So you're probably getting the feeling of that little bit of dopamine boost that you get when you spend money, right? And that little social interaction that you get with your barista. And then as you're taking the cup, you're holding it in your hands, and you're feeling like the steam come up to your face, and you're driving, and you're enjoying the beverage while you're driving, listening to your favorite podcast. Maybe it's caffeinated, and you get that little spike of caffeine, right? So that's giving you kind of this positive dopamine caffeinated burst. So your cue is leaving the house, no beverage. Your habit is stopping for the beverage and paying money. And then this is what you're getting. So what can you replace that habit with that's going to give you the same outcome? So for me, it took a little bit of effort, but I would leave with a beverage. So I would take a moment in the morning and I would leave with a beverage. And although it took a little bit of conscious effort to get sort of the same hit that you would get from buying a beverage and just easily having it, I can still recreate that. So my cue is still leaving. If I leave without a hot cup of tea or a hot cup of coffee in the morning on my way to work, I will stop for coffee. So what I do is I just set myself up so when the cue hits as I'm driving and I'm thinking, oh, I really want a sip of a nice warm beverage on my way to work, it's right there, right? So then I can pick it up and then I can recreate the same sensation of feeling the warmth, listening to my podcast, getting the caffeine, etc. So that's kind of how a habit works. So what you have to do is think to yourself, okay, What habit am I engaging in that's detracting me from my ultimate goal? And if in this case our ultimate goal is financial freedom, or our ultimate goal is building, our cushion or emergency fund, or maybe it's a debt snowball or whatever you're working on, what habit are you unconsciously doing that's detracting from your goal? And then you look at that process. What's your cue? What's your habit? What's your result? And then what you want is to know the cue will always probably be there. You want the same result. So what habit can you change out that can do that for you? So, but like I said, there's tons of research out there about the science behind habits. And if you're looking to change habits, I heavily recommend that you check out some of the resources that are out there.
It seems like in that situation, you're not depriving yourself of wanting that item, but rather achieving that item and still getting that reward in the end in a different way. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, all right. Is there anything else you wanted to comment on this chapter?
I think it's a little bit harder if you're trying to get rid of a habit. So that's something to look into. Like in that situation, I could easily see myself wanting, like, I just don't want to have to buy coffee or engage in getting creamer or whatever the habit might be, which for me, it's literally always trying to give up coffee and creamer. So it's harder to completely eradicate a habit without replacing it with something. So I could see that if I wanted to remove, in this situation, the coffee altogether, I would probably need to substitute it with tea. And maybe at some point, for whatever reason, you're just like, I don't want to drink anything on the way to work. Then, from tea, you could go to your morning smoothie, and then eventually you could just maybe go to nothing. But it's a lot harder if you want to just completely remove something from your life. It's easier if you think of the cue, think of a substitute behavior that will give you a similar or the same result. So
Sure.
Impulse shopping could be another one. If you have a cue and you go and you spend some money and it gives you this boost, right? So find out, instead of just pulling that whole thing away, because the cue will always be there, just make sure that you're trying to substitute it with something as opposed to just trying to completely eradicate a behavior. So change, don't eradicate.
So maybe for impulse shoppers, instead of shopping for something that's going to hit your budget, you turn your impulse shopping into shopping for your side hobby or your way to make money, and you buy stuff that you can resell online or something like that. So, that's great.
Or maybe that's a good time that you go and you stock up on some gifts that you need for people that are coming up. You
have a list of things that you want to shop for, because you know that there's times where you have the urge to shop, and so you pull out your list and be like, all right, today we're getting Grandpa Gary's gift, and we're going to go down and pick that up or whatever. So, fun. So, all right. Well, thank you for watching today. Please let us know down in the comments what you thought of this episode, and we will see you in the next video.